My name is James. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Beemunity. We are revolutionizing how the world can support pollinators. First, let me tell you about how pesticides are affecting bees, beekeepers, and growers. This is our life with bees, a diverse world of colorful and nutritious foods. This is our life without bees. As you can see, bees are critical for our food production. 1/3 of the food we eat is actually dependent on pollinators. After World War II, we started using pesticides. This became necessary because we began to grow these crop monocultures that put out a feast for our pests. But unfortunately, our appetite for pesticides got so great, we began spraying wherever we could. As you can see here by this truck on Jones Beach actually spraying down people. Today, our agricultural methods have become immense. We have access to a litany of agrochemicals which can address all kinds of attack. In the US today, we spray over 1 billion pounds of pesticides every year. Pesticides are everywhere, and as a result, there are now some places in the world where bees cannot exist, and without bees, humans have resorted to pollinating like this. After World War II, the number of hives in the US started to sharply decline. Pesticides are a massive issue for beekeepers. In New York State, beekeepers are losing up to 70% of their hives every year. Pesticide contamination is also a massive issue for growers. In our apple orchards, which are so prevalent in New York State, on average we detect 17 different pesticides in a pollen sample taken from one bee. Apples have the second highest quantity of pesticides applied to fruit in the US, and as a result, research has shown that in every case studied, apple yields are always limited by poor pollination. Pollination services for apple are currently valued at $2.1 billion. If pollination was to improve tomorrow, this value would go up. But in reality, the figure is set to go down. Pesticides are only getting worse year on year, and we are still no better at protecting our bees. This value of pollination does not even account for blueberries, cherries, watermelon, pumpkin, almonds, and all the other pollinator-dependent crops in the US. This is the total money and food that we're going to lose if pollinators continue to decline as they are. Some of these crops are now dependent on the pollination of a single bee species at a time climate change is rapidly changing their environment. If we continue to ignore this problem, it's really going to sting. Current approaches to tackle the problem for beekeepers include supplemental pollen, genetics, and probiotics. These solutions really deal with the after effects of pesticides. We need something which is going to directly deal with the problem with prevention over cure. Let me introduce to you the solution. This is the Beemunity microsponge, the world's first product which specifically soaks up pesticides when fed to a bee. We've secured the provisional patent for this technology. This works in 3 simple steps. First, the bee feeds on the treatment. Microsponges then travel down the gut, remaining stable, while specifically identifying and capturing pesticides. This diverts pesticides away from the brain. Finally, the bee expels the microsponges in poop. By eliminating pesticides and their neurotoxic effect, we're creating land which can actually support and be safe for pollinators, allowing bees to perform the role that nature intended. We've received critical acclaim for our work, with an early iteration of our technology having been published in the journal Nature Food. Upon repeated trials on colonies of bees, we exposed populations to lethal doses of pesticides. We found that we could prevent the mortality of 80% of a population through our treatment. We manufacture our microsponges into a stable powder form. This allows for easy integration into products for beekeepers and growers. For beekeepers, we create a hive detoxifying feed. Beekeepers regularly use hive feeds, but our product actually can improve hive health to reduce hive losses and increase hive profitability. The product has the capacity to bring a $60 per hive improvement, which represents a potential $156 million benefit to US beekeeping. For growers, we can deliver our treatment to bees by irrigating crops. Plants then uptake the treatment and release it in nectar, which can be collected by bees. We're enabling growers to target whilst eliminating the damage that they might make on their beneficial pollinators. In US apple alone, we can increase revenue by $210 million just by improving the safety of the land and promoting pollination. We're not just selling feed and irrigation solutions, we're selling insurance of asset security for the future. In our simple business model, we charge $5 for a hive treatment and $40 for a treatment on 1 acre of land. Beekeepers can expect a full year's protection for $30,000, and they'll receive a return benefit through their healthier hives of $120,000. Growers can expect a full year's protection for $4,000, and they'll receive a return benefit of $50,000 through better pollination on their safer lands. So where are we on our technological pollinator journey? Well, having secured our initial funding through the IndieBio Accelerator program and built a pilot facility, we are now set to start trials with 2 large apiaries and orchards in the upstate GrowNY region. This will set a platform to finalize our products at the end of next year before scaling for production and launch. But with the help of GrowNY, we can actually accelerate these milestones so that by 2024, we can reach our whopping target of protecting 100 farms and apiaries in New York State, out of 400, that we'll be protecting across the US. For those 100 farms, we'll be able to give a $6 million uplift, but that figure can actually grow to $2.4 billion if we're able to protect all the farms and apiaries across the US. The GrowNY region presents a unique opportunity to advance our technology by leveraging expertise in agriculture. Our GrowNY commitment is that we will create our primary R&D facility in the heart of the GrowNY region. By doing this, we'll actually be able to improve on the already great efficacy and compatibility of our technology. This can further the uplift we can bring to the region. We've already secured a partnership with Cornells Dice Lab, who will be supporting our field trials that are happening next year around the Finger Lakes. To support our activities in the region, we want to create a realistic 13 high-paid jobs. We want to employ field operators, boots on the ground who can actually travel to our clients and secure the successful deployment of our technology. Amongst other jobs, we also want to employ agricultural scientists and data analysts who can analyze our data to inform our further innovations in this space. Over the past few weeks, we got out of the building and we actually went and met with farmers and beekeepers who told us how much they would love to get our technology in their hands. These relationships that we're constantly building will enable sustainable growth of their businesses, and they also enable our product to be rapidly adopted upon commercialization. We're trying to improve the lives of beekeepers and growers because we want to give back to the region, which has afforded us the opportunity to build our business thus far. With $1 million of investment by the end of 2026, we'll have $12.5 million in revenue, representing a 70% gross margin with an EBITDA of $7.6 million. I'm very proud to be backed by our incredible team. They bring a wealth of expertise in the fields of biotech, entomology, and finance. We've amassed over 20 years of research experience, coupled with leading business expertise. I've handpicked this team to bring a young, innovative mindset to the ag tech space, and we're excited for the opportunity to build this team even further. We're also backed by our board of advisors. This includes individuals who have started multiple successful biotech companies, beekeepers with deep research and industry experience, a blend of world-leading professors who are integral to our operation, and a private equity founding partner with 27 years of experience in building businesses. So to recap, we have a cutting-edge technology, and we're bringing a diverse and ready team to create high-quality jobs, bringing new and novel customer benefits to the region with an easily scalable business model. Thanks for your time, and now I'd like to welcome my co-founder, Abraham, for any questions you might have.
Great. Well done. Thank you very much, Beemunity. Okay, judges, we have just about 10 minutes and 20 seconds for questions. John Eng, lead us off.
Really exciting technology, and Lord knows we need something like this.
We agree.
Amazing. I applaud your drive here. I assume the 80% survival rate in your study was a lab test. Any real world metrics on a real world test?
Sure, yeah, so yeah, you're right. Most of the trials we've done to date have been in the lab, so we've taken mini colonies and done repeated trials on those. We have done some trials in actual hives, and we were measuring the increase in weight and the increase in number of bees. And so relative to non-treated, they did increase by 40% relative to the non-treated ones. But it's worth pointing out that that was quite a preliminary small batch. And so next year we are going to ramp that up significantly.
Yeah. And so we're quite a young company and we're running a bee time. So we started in February. This year, or next year in January, we're going full pelt on the trials. We've got those partners set up.
Great. Mary Shellman, you up with the question?
Yeah, thanks. Just to follow up on that a little bit about the trial design, I'm just curious, kind of how long that you monitored this. And I guess what's in my mind is the question about, are there unintended consequences of this? Like, yeah, the bees survive for 5 days or 10 days, but
Sure.
30 years or 30 days after this, they keel over, and then that old story of kind of rabbits in Australia. Rabbits were introduced in Australia because they were cute and they were known for the British countryside, but there were no natural predators, and they ended up eating all the grass in the country, and still today is responsible for a huge issue with with drought there. So
Yeah, so the technology is completely naturally derived, which is a big positive for its safety. We have
so
tested.
are rabbits.
Right. But yeah, we're not, I guess we're not creating anything which is new in terms of biology to the ecosystem, right? We're just kind of medicating the bees to flush out any pesticides that they might have. We have tested, I think, over 2 weeks, and they're happy as ever. We haven't seen any detrimental effects, but yeah, we'll be wary of the rabbit analogy.
Well, and to build on the rabbit analogy is we've had to rely on honeybees for that pollination, but the biggest issue we have is with the decline in native pollinators. And that's one of our biggest visions, is to help native pollinators on farms and make the land less toxic. So we've had to rely on these proverbial rabbits to survive at the moment.
Wow. Over to you, Annie, for another question.
Hey guys, great presentation. Couple, sort of to follow on where Mary was going. I love the way you carefully outlined the problem. But if you are now creating a solution to treat the bees, are you encouraging the continued use of high amounts of pesticides?
No, yeah, that's something that we're definitely very wary of. And when we started this, it was definitely not to encourage that. And I think that is kind of almost a complex philosophical problem, right, that we're faced with. Do we just allow the decline and to really not mess with that and wait until we're in this utopia where we don't use pesticides, or do we try and basically stop the problem now and work with the pesticide use? And I think it's going to be a real important job to communicate that this is not something that is going to be the end solution, and just because you use this does not mean you're not going to have an impact on all the beneficial pollinators that are out there. We're never going to be able to address and save all the beneficial pollinators, right? This is going to make some of a dent, but it's definitely not the end solution. And so, yeah, I think that is a danger, but communication with farmers, beekeepers, into really outlining what this does, I think will be key in doing that. But I definitely understand your point.
Great. Over to you, John.
Yeah, real interesting presentation. As an old farm boy that had a few hives in our place, always interested to see what's going on, especially given the current state of bees. So I find it interesting. I mean, that your whole concept here seems very understandable, Anybody out there doing similar work or trying to come at this the same way or slightly different way? Because I always wonder with scientists like you how these ideas pop in your mind, and are there others doing the same thing right now?
You can take that one if you want.
Yeah, so the answer is no, there aren't. And kind of part of the reason I'm here is to support this guy. This guy invented the technology and with an innovative mindset at Cornell. And for real change to happen, you need to take the science, bring it into the real world. Like James looked at the problem, put a few papers together, and came up with a solution, and it works. So there isn't that mindset out there. There are no competitors, but we welcome anyone for the challenge.
To add to that, I guess there's nothing which detoxifies pesticides directly. There are other things out there which are being sold to beekeepers to improve the health of the hive, namely probiotics. Genetics is something that's coming through, but it has a lot of regulatory hurdles. Throwing mutant bees out there isn't everyone's cup of tea. So yeah, there are a few things out there, but nothing really that does this.
Laura.
Yeah, well, I'm the farmer here, as I always say. So I understand how a beekeeper would treat the hives. How would a farmer apply it? Was that through irrigation? I wasn't quite sure on that.
Right, irrigation, and another option is crop injection. We didn't talk about that, but we haven't actually tried that. We've been trialing out basically irrigating flowering plants, and through the vasculature they take it up and it gets into the nectary tissues and through the nectarodes. So it actually can come out in the nectar for the bees because it's a nanoparticle product. So the nanoparticles can be absorbed by the roots, and it gets into the plant in that way.
So it enters the plant, and then the bee gets it from there.
Right.
So I'm wondering if this would detoxify pesticides without going through a bee?
So you make a point there. So it could be an issue for seed-treated crops, but for topical treatments, not so much, because obviously the pesticide is on the surface. So we need to investigate that further, to be honest with you. But yeah, you raise a good point.
John Eng, do you have a question?
Talk a little bit about your manufacturing process. Any major hurdles there in getting this to scale?
So yeah, so we've recently, as part of the IndieBio Accelerator program, we've kind of been building out a pilot facility to try and see how do we take this out of the lab and scale it up. And it's actually pretty easy. We just need some bigger machinery from the lab scale stuff that we've got at the moment. But yeah, it's not really a massive hurdle for us. It's a pretty simple process, to be honest with you.
Great, thank you. Annie, do you have a question?
Yes. Another follow-on question. There are a lot of people, as John mentioned, really looking at hive health, et cetera. There's a lot of programs out there. Are you guys tapping into any of those existing programs, and can you be additive? And would you work in partnership with some of those to sort of integrate testing or et cetera? Love to know if you can share some of that with us.
Do you want to do that one?
Yeah, absolutely. So we haven't had a chance to speak directly with these policymakers. However, this is a technology that they need. Arguably, the whole problem is a political and economic problem. There's a growing middle class needing more juicier fruits that they require. So a big part of the solution will be with the policymakers and people who have that backing as well. So we need those partnerships and we need that support.
There's a lot of, the Bee Informed partnership is kind of a big one, and they do a lot of work with beekeepers to see what their contamination is. And there's quite an economic hurdle for beekeepers because beekeeping is a pretty tough industry to be in, and so if they're paying $90, $100 to get a sample tested, it is pretty tough. And so, yeah, I think we can collaborate with those guys to show, hey, look, by using our products, you can drive down that contamination, whatever it might be, or you can improve on your general hive loss throughout the year. So yeah, we probably need to do more work, and we've been too busy with the R&D, but yeah, you raised a good point there.
I have one final question, sorry. So for the apiaries, does it have any impact on the taste of the honey?
So yeah, you raise a good point. So when a honey flow is going on, we probably wouldn't recommend putting it in at that point. But we haven't tasted the honey and seen a big difference, to be honest. But lots of things get into honey and it gets purified. But yeah, we recommend not putting it on when the honey flows on.
Great. Well, I think we're going to call it there, judges. Thank you so much. Great questions, great pitch.
Thank you.
Let's hear it up for Beemunity. Thanks, guys. All right.